Can the Minnesota Vikings keep their slim playoff hopes alive? Well, if they're going to do it, they have to, no matter what, beat the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys, they want to keep their division hopes alive. Winning 4 in a row and then having the Eagles lose 2 of their next 4 will win them the NFC East. Who is going to come out on top on this Sunday night clash? What is J.J. McCarthy going to do against this Dallas Cowboys defense? Can Dak Prescott take down Brian Flores? Plus, some spicy rumors going around. Let's talk about it all here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, where with your first $5 play using the promo code Forno, you can get $75 back in bonus credits. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. And we have a very interesting matchup here this weekend, and that is the Minnesota Vikings going to Dallas and taking on the Cowboys. The last time they made the trip to Dallas was the 2019 Sunday night game, where Kyle Rudolph had that sit catch in the back of the end zone, and the Vikings improved to 7-3. Well, they can't improve to 7 wins, and it's week 15 as the Vikings sit at 5-8, but they still have slim playoff hopes alive right now. And those slim playoff hopes are in a position where they have to win. As I said in the intro, they have to win. The Cowboys really need to win as well. And this NFC is a very, very difficult conference to end up trying to make the playoffs just because of the strength at the top. So it'll be interesting to see what this Vikings team ends up doing on Sunday. And I think there are some really interesting kind of tidbits to look at with this matchup, because it's not just storyline based. There's some interesting strategy on both sides of the football that the Minnesota Vikings can attack. Before we get into that, Dave, how are you?
I'm good. Having fun. Looking up. I'd heard we've won 3 in a row down in Dallas, but I'm just confirming that.
I think that's right. Yeah, that sounds right. The Vikings have not had such good luck at home, especially in prime time. There was that game in 2016 where they lost 17-15 on Thursday Night Football. They lost on Halloween a few years back. I believe that was the Cooper Rush game. They lost to Andy Dalton at US Bank Stadium. It's been a house of horrors, this Cowboys team has been over the course of the last few years. And one of the big reasons why, oddly enough, Dak Prescott really hasn't played in those games, which is kind of crazy to think about because he's been such a focus of that team. What did you find, Dave?
No, I was wrong. The last time was 2019, and the time before that in Dallas was 2013, and we lost.
Oh, yeah. That was that really cool Adrian Peterson run where he got like stood up, and then the offensive line basically picked him up and threw him into the end zone. That was a really cool sight.
That was a 23-27 final on that one.
Yeah. The Vikings have not had a great history. And of course, I believe this is the week of the 50th anniversary of that bullshit Hail Mary Drew Pearson pushed off.
He did.
And he absolutely pushed off. I'm sorry. It's the fact that they didn't call that is just absolute baloney. And it's
Ted Glover's uncle was the one that threw the bottle at the ref.
Oh, hell yeah. That I'm not going to support violence and rioting, but that I suppose if you're going to do anything like that, that's probably your best bet in that kind of genre. But this matchup is a really interesting one. Let's start with quarterback J.J. McCarthy, because a lot of talk, and we talked a little bit about it last night, X's and Skulls with Luke Braun, like the peer progression thing and how Kevin O'Connell had really kind of sees it. It's an interesting topic that And you can kind of go both ways with it. Old school, you were mainly looking at, hey, what is this player doing? And we're going to read this guy and we're going to attack the other side of the field or other players because that player is doing a certain thing. You see that all the time in college too, because when a lot of times with these super gimmicky college offenses that run a lot of RPOs, then you also have air raid. You look for the safety. What is the safety doing? If the safety goes right, you go left. If the safety goes left, you go right. If the middle linebacker drops, you throw under. If the minute linebacker comes forward, you throw over the top of it. And college offenses don't do a lot of like the super NFL-y stuff because they don't have to, because you attack space and you take advantage of bad football players because college teams have them. It's that bad NFL players could absolutely destroy at the college level. It's so interesting how different that's viewed, because bad college players are going to be the store manager at Lowe's. They are not going to be like going to the CFL. They're not going to be playing in the UFL. They are going to be doing basic everyday work. They just have a football scholarship. In the NFL, you have a bad NFL player. That guy's still making $1 million a year. And I related to, if you met Brian Scalabrine, who was like the penultimate, like 12th guy on the bench, barely played. And when he did, I mean, it wasn't that he was bad, but you didn't want him to play a lot of minutes because you had a lot better guys on your team. That dude goes to the YMCA. He's whipping your butt 21-0 in one-on-one. He's absolutely destroying you because he's an NBA player, and there's just a different level of talent when it comes to professional athletes. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. And with McCarthy, he's still learning some of that stuff. He's still learning how to navigate. He's still learning how to see the field and make good decisions by throwing the ball. And that's going to come and improve with time. Now, will that improve at the speed that everybody wants it to? Probably not. Let's just be honest here. But there is a lot of good with McCarthy's game. We talked about that coming off of the Washington Commanders win. And this Dallas Cowboys team, 29th in EPA per play, 30th in EPA per dropback. This is not a good defense. And there are abilities to take advantage of corner. Luke even mentioned it. Reddy Stewart, a guy that the Vikings wanted to keep around on the practice squad, ended up being claimed by the Dallas Cowboys. And now he's their third cornerback right now. It's dire straits. You have Trevon Diggs. Deron Bland is on IR. Siobhan Revel, who I loved coming out of the draft. He's having a rookie cornerback season, which, I mean, he's a rookie cornerback. It's hard to play corner in the National Football League. So you have those elements, and the Vikings need to be able to try and take advantage of that. Are they going to be able to take advantage of that, Dave? Because J.J. McCarthy has been far from consistent when it comes to throwing the ball down the field and making proper reads and doing so in a prompt manner. That is one of my biggest concerns coming into this game, because it's not like he's completely unable to do it. He's not void of the ability. There's a void of consistency. And if you can't ever figure out your consistency, then maybe you just won't be a starter in the National Football League. But it's not a huge red flag to me yet that he's inconsistent, because he only has 7 starts. This is going to be start number 8. If he can figure it out and he can go forward and he can see, hey, this guy's doing this and I'm going to throw the football, and we get Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison involved, then I think we can feel a lot better about the direction of where this offense is going. If you can't, against this secondary, against this defense, and really try and get the passing game going at all, I think we have to start asking ourselves some more difficult questions. Because if you stink against a really good defense, okay, you stunk against a really good defense. That Packers defense, as much as we hate them, it's a good defense. You stunk against Jeff Hafley. A lot of quarterbacks have stunk against Jeff Hafley. But are you going to stink against Matt Eberflus? That would raise a humongous red flag for me.
He's beaten us a few times down in Chicago when he coached.
Did he?
Well,
that 12-10 game, the Josh Dobbs game, that one. Was that it though?
I thought it was 2 or 3 times he did, but hey, who knows? Let's see. Now, how's JJ going to do it? Pure progression, baby. Pure progression.
Yeah. The one thing that I really take a look at with this game and how the Vikings are going to attack is they just want JJ McCarthy to go out there and play football. Play like he played at Michigan. And I mean that in, hey, run the play that's called, don't overthink. And one quote that Kevin O'Connell had was talking about how McCarthy was telling him, hey, I think this guy's going to do this on this play. And, I went to college with Mikey Sanderstill. And he's super aggressive, so I think on this, he's going to do this. And Kevin O'Connell just said, stop. Just don't think about that. Just play. Just play. And
the Vikings lost to the Bears and Eberflus in 2023.
Yeah, that was the Josh Dobbs game.
That was the 10-12 game. 2020.
Which would have been Matt Nagy still.
33, would it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eberflus was only 22, 23, and 24. Yeah. Funny story. When Josh McDaniels spurned the Colts after already accepting the job, Eberflus was the defensive coordinator. Frank Reich kept Eberflus on staff, even though that wouldn't have been his preferred offensive or defensive coordinator hire because it was just the right thing to do. So interesting story there. But Eberflus does not have a very good defense. It's very cover 2 zone. It's almost like we're playing like a Foge Fazio defense in the late 90s. Like, this is modern day football. You have to have a lot of match concepts. You have to have variety. You have to be able to show things pre and post snap. Eberflus's defense are relatively static, and that can be a huge problem for the defense because you can figure things out. If McCarthy can read the defense quickly, then we can maybe start to see how he grows and evolves within the context of what this offense is. And as Biggs in the chat mentioned, if Darrisaw is out, then those 5-man fronts are going to be a problem. And let's talk about Darrisaw for a second because he did not practice for the second consecutive day, and it raises a big red flag.
Well, it's not like it hasn't happened before.
Well, hold on. Let me explain but it hasn't been that he's been out on Wednesday and then out on Thursday to then where he's played. We haven't seen that yet. So the fact that he was out Wednesday was a little bit of a concern. Thursday in a vacuum is not a concern because he hasn't really practiced on Thursday all year long. But the fact that he didn't practice on Wednesday, Friday's a big one. If he doesn't practice, if he's limited, I don't think he's playing at all. If he's a full participant, I think he's just fine. I don't know where his health is at, but I'm concerned because of the back-to-back nature of it, not just because he missed practice on Thursday, because that was their plan. They kind of told us that when he started to come back to practice. But if he doesn't play, these 5-man fronts that Eberflus has started to run have been effective. And one of the reasons why they started running him was the acquisition of Quinnen Williams. Everybody made fun of them for trading for Micah Parsons. Yeah. Make fun of them for that. They were dumb. They got Kenny Clark, but then they used one of their first-round picks and a second-round pick to go get Quinnen Williams. And that in itself was a good move. Quinnen Williams is a fantastic football player. They also gave up Mozzie Smith in the deal. Now, Quinnen Williams felt a little bit redundant because you have Oso Odighizuwa and you just paid him a boatload of money to be a starting 3 technique for your football team. We talked about him a lot. If there's one 3 technique, like pure pass rusher that I wanted, I didn't want Milton Williams. I wanted Odighizuwa because I thought he was a better player and he was a more well-rounded player when it came to dealing with the run and being a little bit more versatile. I thought he was a better player than Milton Williams. Milton Williams got a lot more money. But Odighizuwa stayed home. He stayed in Dallas, which, you know what? Good for him. But that was the guy I wanted. So now you have those guys. You have Kenny Clark. Your edge players are okay. And they're still reeling from the death of Marshawn Kneeland a few weeks ago when he had a mental health episode, I believe is what they classified it. And then he ended up crashing his car and then committing suicide. Absolutely brutal in every sense of the word. But that he was one of their rotational edge rushers. So from a football perspective, they lost a talented football player. I loved Marshawn Kneeland, the football player. He made the All-Forno team. Like, I thought really highly of what he could do in the NFL, and that really stunk. From a human perspective, it completely stinks all around. Everything's bad. From a football-only perspective, I really thought it stunk too, because I thought he had a ton of potential. And when you lose him, it completely shifts kind of what you potentially want to do with your fronts, because he was such a big part of that. He was such a big part of your edge rushing group. Sam Williams is all right. I can't remember who else is at edge. They lost to Marcus Lawrence this offseason. He went and signed with the Seattle Seahawks, and he looks 5 years younger with that Seahawks team. It's been quite an impressive turnaround. But having that 5-man front and forcing you to go 5-0 protection, holding tight ends or running backs back from going out into the route is a really big deal, because it makes it just a little bit harder to block. And the Vikings do a lot of 5-man fronts too. And I think that's one of the reasons why the defensive pass rush has been so successful, because you have 3 defensive tackles, 2 edge rushers, and you just send 5. Hey, block us, buddy. You can't do it. That's the idea. They have 33 sacks this year, a little behind the pace of last season. They are on pace right now, I believe, to finish with 43 or 44 sacks, which, hey, a 5-6 sack decrease is not the end of the world. But it would still stink to see any kind of decrease at all. But when you have that 5-0 protection, it's just man-to-man. There are no double teams. There are no slides. It's, you have your responsibility. Stop him. That's it. It's that simple. And if you can't do it, then it can cause a lot of havoc for JJ McCarthy. The one thing that I find really interesting about being able to stop these 5-man fronts, Dave, it feels very simple to me. Now, I mentioned it on last night's show. Got to throw horizontal. Throw horizontal, throw quick outs, hitches, screens, do some smash concepts to where you get that high-low and you attack it. And it's a relatively quicker throw because of the nature of it. And they love to do a lot of cover 2 stuff, so you can be able to pepper it in with those cover 2 looks. Corner routes are great against cover 2. And if you can throw quick and outside and horizontal and make them run, make them chase, that can really stop the effectiveness of the 5-man front. You can also force them to go away from the 5-man front, and then you can go back to a lot of the things you want to do. And why I frame it that way is because the Vikings haven't really shown a willingness to do a lot of the short stuff, to throw a lot of the quick routes to the outside. They want to throw vertically. They want to throw like the deep corners. They want to throw digs. They want to do Hank, which is a deep curl route, which is about like a 15-yard route concept, but it's just a curl. So you basically go find the hole in zone, turn around, and that's all it is. But it's harder to do those things when you have a 5-man front, because you're not talking about sending a blitzer. You're talking about 5 guys at least 250 pounds. 3 of them are arguably 300 plus because of how you're constructing the 5-man front. That's hard to block. It's hard to block consistently. And even when it's a 4-man pass rush, they can do stunts and do things to occupy multiple blockers so you can spring a guy free or get a guy with a one-on-one matchup that you really like. The Vikings did a lot last year to isolate Jonathan Grenard in the same way. You run a stunt on the other side, you get Van Ginkel swirling around, going from a wide 9 technique, lining up outside of the tackle, all the way into rushing into the other side's A gap and doing some of those stunt looks to try and spring some pressure. And they had to do that because they didn't have defensive tackles they really trusted. This year they do. And how will the Cowboys utilize some of these 5-man fronts? Because they're not a 3-4 team. They're not like the Vikings. They are doing 5-man fronts kind of out of necessity of what the player personnel is, not because, hey, this is just how we want to live. No, it's all about, hey, let's maximize what the players are. And can they do that? Can they maximize it? I'm very interested to find out. If the Vikings are willing to do the horizontal game and throw those speed outs, throw those quick screens, throw those hitch routes, throw stick, where it's just like spacing concepts, do that. Make it so it's harder for them to actually maximize those 5-man fronts. And then you got to figure out the run game. It's harder to block those guys, but if you can spring a hole, then, hey, there's one less guy in the back end on that second level to be able to take you out. And if you can get Aaron Jones on a duo play, or a duo is going to be a lot harder to run with a 5-man front, but if you can do it on a wide zone to where, hey, you get that backside cut, it's a lot harder for one linebacker to fill multiple gaps when 2 linebackers might have been able to make the tackle. There are some things you can do in that realm to be able to spring big plays and make things happen. That's going to be the Vikings' task on the offensive side of the football. Can they find a way to beat those 5-man fronts? I don't know. I don't know if Kevin O'Connell's going to be willing to do the short passing game. But last week was the lowest average depth of target on the season for J.J. McCarthy. They were willing to make those adjustments finally, using heavy personnel, running a lot of quick stuff, running a lot of, hey, the touchdown to T.J. Hawkins was a nice little out route when you had Justin Jefferson clear, and then they just failed to make any kind of tackle. And Hawkinson used his strength and bada bing, bada boom, touchdown. Will he be willing to do it again? One of the things we talked about with O'Connell is the ego. He has somewhat of an ego. And you see that with the play calling where he continues to want to attack down the field. But it's not like those plays are not working. They're just not being executed because guys are getting open. But it's, somebody's not blocking, or J.J. McCarthy goes off the read too much. And now I think we're starting to see some adjustment. I think if McCarthy had played every single game, we would have seen this 5 weeks ago. But he didn't. So it took a little bit longer for that realization to come in because you got a larger sample size. Thank you, Biggs, for the super chat. Screens versus 5-man front. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things we talked about. Run screens. The screen game has gotten a lot better for this Minnesota Vikings team. It's not perfect. Kevin O'Connell still struggles at times with screens, but there is a way to kind of attack that. And you can do screens by like tight end screens. O'Connell really likes those, where you let the guy, like if Hawkinson's lined up on the left, you let him go by Darisaw, and then Darisaw is right there. And I believe as long as the throw is behind the line of scrimmage, it does not count for illegal man downfield. So Darisaw can take a couple of steps forward. And you can throw screens behind it, but you got to be careful because Hawkinson's not like a super speedy guy. He's more of a finesse kind of tight end where he's going to run down the seam and be able to make catches in traffic. And he's not slow, but he's not overly explosive. And those tight end screens, you really would prefer a guy to be like an Evan Ingram, where you can get some real explosion out of the deal. But I like the idea of running screens. I think they're going to have a varied screen game. One thing to watch out for, and you can find this on my Twitter at the Real Forno, Kevin O'Connell loves on 3rd and longer to run modified screens. And let me kind of explain what I mean by that. He will throw a shallow crosser or a Texas route, so an angle route. And he will have the other route concepts basically just run downfield. And then the second that ball's caught, they're set up as blockers. So it's a modified screen in that sense, but it's not non-traditional. And Justin Jefferson got a 12-yard gain and a first down off of one. Aaron Jones in the 2 Bears games last year got big gains off of them, where he's just running a shallow cross and then all of a sudden he's running into blockers. They had one earlier this year with Jones, but the ball was dropped. There are ways that O'Connell finds to get guys the ball in their hands with a convoy in front of them. So that might be something to keep an eye on as well. This offense is a fascinating matchup for this Dallas Cowboys team, Dave. Oh, I didn't realize that you were going to you were taking a break to
sneeze.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay. You were muted. Just poor timing on my part. Very interesting, very interesting matchup. Offensively versus this defense, because if you can exploit that cornerback room, there are things you can do. There are things you can do to attack. And I'm very, very interested to see what kind of success they end up having with that.
Pure progression. Get the ball to Justin Jefferson.
So that's the idea. One thing that's really important to remember when we have the Justin Jefferson conversation, and I know you know this, so this isn't an attack on you, Dave, but Jefferson's gravity is arguably more important than him making catches because it springs everybody else open. So if the offense has a successful day, but Jefferson has 3 catches for 30 yards, it's not that big of a deal because his gravity is going to have a huge impact on everybody else. And I think when we look at Justin Jefferson's box scores, it's alarming. This dude is the best wide receiver in football. Why isn't he putting up numbers? There's so many different reasons why he's not putting up numbers right now. And one of those reasons is, there's a lot of things going on around him. And it's hard to force them the ball.
It's the gravity, and it's quarterback situation. Mm-hmm. But he does have 100-plus yard games relatively normally, even with the gravity pull. And this defense, the secondary that Eberflus runs, is ripe to be picked on and for him to have a good game.
Hold on, repeat that.
The Dallas defense is horrid for the most part in the secondary and is ripe to be picked on during the game Sunday night. And it's for that reason I expect JJ to hear that most of the night, because he will burn, even if he's got two defenders, he's going to be the better matchup. And I expect him to have lots of yards.
We'll find out, because there's a lot of different ways that this game can go. And I'm very interested to see how it ends up progressing. As we kind of look forward, we'll kind of flip sides of the football. But before we do that, Dave, let's have a conversation about our friends at Underdog Fantasy. And
sure.
Tonight's game is a really interesting one because it's the return of Mike Evans. He broke his collarbone. It feels like a week ago. And nope, it was like 4 weeks ago. This dude is just bonkers. And if you want to have a little fun, I got a nice boost in my account, a 50% profit boost for today only, and Underdog will send you some of those, but you got to sign up with an account first. You have to have one, and you can have some fun. I hit a huge lineup that netted me $300 this past weekend, thanks to Fernando Mendoza and the Indiana Hoosiers for beating the Ohio State Buckeyes. All you have to do is use the promo code Forno to join us and make sure it's available in your state, and you can win a lot of money based on your bet. Now, just use that promo code Forno and sign up. And with that first $5 play, you will get $75 back in bonus credits. It's a lot of fun. It's a great time. But remember, it's meant to be for fun. So if you find yourself having a little too much, call our friends at 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yep. Fun. Like Justin Jefferson going over 100 yards. Fun.
I hope so.
Biggs says he hasn't had a 100-yard game since week 5. It's well overdue, Biggs. Well overdue. And I think the Cowboys defense will be that team that gives it up.
Yes, 100%. Let's take a look at the defensive side of the football. This Brian Flores defense is honestly, it's hard to really be upset with their performance this year because they've been put in so many disadvantageous situations from a play perspective, from the Vikings not putting up enough points and not being able to hold on to the ball. A lot of 3-and-outs early in the year with McCarthy and then some with Carson Wentz. They've been a above average defense this year, and there have been some issues as well with Cam Bynum not being on the team anymore and Theo Jackson not being able to take that next step forward. So there are different elements to this conversation when it comes to this Minnesota Vikings defense. As far as, are they good or are they not? But the one thing you can count on is Brian Flores is going to have stuff for Dak Prescott. He's going to have some simulated pressures. He's going to be able to utilize different players. Last week, it was interesting. Dallas Turner didn't play that much. Luke kind of mentioned it on X's and SKOLs. And my big thing was, and he was the one who said it, so I'll give him credit, was it felt game plan related that they didn't play a lot of him. And I think they played Jonathan Allen 1 because of the game plan 2. Allen was cut by the Commanders. You knew that he was going to be juiced up for that game. I think in this game, they're going to want to utilize Dallas Turner. Jonathan Gennard, I don't think is 100%. I think the edge rusher is going to play a huge role in this game because of what the offensive tackles are. Tyler Guyton is still dealing with that high ankle sprain. He's probably not going to play in this game. He did not practice the first 2 days of the week. And then Terrence Steele at right tackle.
Guyton didn't practice today either.
That's what I said. He didn't practice the first 2 days. And then Steele's been bad. He's just been real rough this year. So how are you going to be able to attack? Well, on the edges. Get Grenard, Van Ginkel, and Dallas Turner. Send Eric Wilson on some of those blitzes that you really like. The crosstalk blitzes on the inside are just bonkers. They're so good at. Cashman is so good at selling the engagement and then looping around and just getting right home. Eric Wilson's great at that too. The fact that they're able to do that with such a high frequency consistently is a very impressive thing. But beating the edge and making Dak Prescott scramble or throw quickly, because one of the tough parts about this team, they are so good on the outside. Jake Ferguson, he's got the big contract. He's an average tight end. He's good because he's got really good chemistry with Dak Prescott, but not exactly great from that perspective either, because when it comes to the the weapons on the outside, excuse me, I had a little bit of a brain fart. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. The hope was, maybe Lamb won't play for this game. He suffered a concussion. against the Lions. Well, to my knowledge, he has been officially cleared from concussion protocol. He practiced in full on Thursday, and he is on track to play on Sunday. So that's a huge deal, because now you have to deal with Lamb, and Lamb is somebody like how Justin Jefferson was used at LSU. They all used them all exclusively in the slot. Why? Well, they had Jamar Chase and Terrence Marshall Jr. on the outside. They didn't need Jefferson to play the outside. So, just dominate from the slot. And he did. And Justin Jefferson's just great, so he can do whatever you need him to do. Lamb, they just use him in the slot. And they're like, hey, you can't stop him. So we're just going to use him in the slot and have a bunch of different things coming for him. And by
hopefully Murphy will play most of his time in a slot.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night.
You can do a lot of different things with Lamb, especially because you have an outside receiver in George Pickens. Last year, they didn't really have a good outside receiver. This year, well, when Pickens wants to play, let's put it that way, when he wants to play, that's the key, because he hasn't always wanted to play. And there have been some effort questions, and it's George Pickens. He's the most unique player in the National Football League, because when that guy is on, he's tremendous. When he's off, it looks like, if you've ever played Pokemon or if you ever watched the Pokemon anime where Ash has Charizard and Charizard's not listening, loafing around, then all of a sudden he gets hit with a flamethrower and he goes berserk. George Pickens is Ash's Charizard. I think I just created the best comp. When he's got that proper motivation, he's incredible. I'm gonna share that, because that's a fun one. But you have to be able to find a way to stop those guys. And Pickens is like 6'3", 215. I may be slightly off with the measurements, but he's a big dude. He's fantastic at the catch point. Vikings don't have a corner who can really match up with that size-wise. Isaiah Rodgers.
Our corners are short.
Mm-hmm. Rodgers is fine against bigger receivers. He did a great job against T. Higgins in week 3. Remember that PBU is just fantastic. And Byron Murphy, size hasn't ever really mattered for him that much. So there are different things here and there that you can kind of figure out. But you have to be able to find a way to stop those players. You have to find a way to get Dak Prescott to focus on checkdowns, focus on the run game. And one of the things that I think they'll do is that I think they're going to do a ton of blitzing, ton of simulated pressures, make Dak confused and attack those tackles. To me, that's number one. Because if you can get that left tackle confused, I'm not even sure who the backup left tackle is. I'm going to pull it up.
While you do that, I'll tell you, PFF had our Vikings defensive line ranked number 1 for last weekend, just to let you know. They ranked them on the season number 11. And who's the highest graded of the defensive line?
Jalen Redmond. I love that guy.
We need to give him an extension.
So they don't have to. It's an interesting conversation, because he's an exclusive rights free agent after the year, meaning he can't talk with any other teams. There are 2 years of team control left for Jalen Redmond. What the Vikings need to figure out, and they're going to have more data on this than we will because they see him every day in practice, is do you want to give him an extension now when he still has 2 years left of team control and potentially save a bunch of money? Or do you want to risk it because, hey, maybe he's not going to be able to duplicate this next year, and not give him that extension because you can pay him like $1.1 million on an exclusive rights free agent tag. You don't have to pay him the big money. So that's going to be the internal discussions that they have about Jalen Redmond. I think it'd be smart to give him an extension now, save yourself some money, do like a 5-year deal where you have the 2 years of team control and then it's 3 years on top of that. And you can spread the money out real nice for the cap and you can do a lot of those things. But these are tough decisions that you have to make because you want to give up that team control. But if you do, then you could potentially upset a player who's playing way above his pay grade and you had an opportunity to give him a big money extension and you didn't. So there are different levels to that conversation, and we'll break down the Redmond topic once we get to the off season, because I want to talk about Redmond. I'm going to talk about Jordan Addison. We're going to talk about the offensive line and what you do there. Like, you can't get rid of Will Fries after year 1, but you could after year 2 if he's just playing like an average guard and you're paying him like he's much better than that. There's a lot of conversations to be had about those things. We're going to have different mock off seasons. We're going to have plenty of mock draft talk. We'll get there in time. But the Jalen Redmond one is the most fascinating to me because of the team control. You have the ability to keep him for literally nothing, or pay him an extension. Those things are more difficult than you might think, those conversations. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. We'll see how the Vikings want to handle it, how the Vikings want to attack. I'm very excited to see how that looks.
Gotcha.
I really am. But for me, the biggest thing with the Dallas Cowboys is you got to find a way to stop these receivers and Dak Prescott.
Well, if you can pressure Dak, that's one way of doing it.
And those offensive tackles are going to be the number one way to do so.
Mm-hmm. And if he tries to screen, don't throw it to Van Ginkel's side or you'll be in trouble.
Oh, 100%. You don't want to screw up on that sense. I'm trying to think. There's not a whole lot else I have here about this game. So I think the number one thing I'm going to I want to talk about here is I think we have to talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a very interesting case. He had some interesting comments, Dave, on I think it was Wednesday. Starting quarterbacks usually meet with the media once a week, and he talked about how he just wanted to have fun playing football, essentially insinuating he was not having fun in Cincinnati. So, of course,
there are issues.
Mm-hmm, the Vikings need a franchise quarterback. They could have one in J.J. McCarthy. We don't know that they do. We don't know that they don't. But there have been so many negatives with the discussion about what J.J. McCarthy is that there have been major questions about, is he going to get to that level? Is he going to figure it out? We don't know. We really don't. And when you have a guy like Joe Burrow potentially coming open, that in itself is a fascinating one. I don't know if he would be worth the trade. Let me explain why I say that, because I think it's a very layered conversation. Joe Burrow is a very, very talented football player. The problem with Joe Burrow is he's almost always hurt. He misses a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
You want to put a ton of assets into Joe Burrow when he already misses a lot of time. That's a really hard sell for me to give up a lot of assets to go acquire that football player. That does not mean that I don't think Joe Burrow would be really good with Kevin O'Connell. Throwing the ball Justin Jefferson, throwing the ball Jordan Addison, handling what KOC does on offense. I think he's really good. Fantastic fit. But do you want to give up 2 first-round picks plus to go get Joe Burrow?
Plus more picks. Yeah.
Now you're sacrificing a lot of your football team's future to get Burrow. And that means you expect Burrow to overcome all of that. Now, the Rams, when they got Stafford, they won a Super Bowl year one. Nothing matters else with that trade. They won a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. If you hit a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow year one or year two, nothing else matters. But if Burrow gets hurt, let's say he has a severe hamstring strain, he's out 8 weeks. And then you just, nothing ever ends up happening with him. That's the fear, because this is a player that is often injured. What happens if he gets injured again? What happens if he continues to get injured? And now you're trading major assets and you're paying this guy. So if they were to trade him, he's due a $2 million option bonus on March 23rd. So he would have to be traded before that. The dead money for the Cincinnati Bengals would be approximately $57 million if they traded him before June 1st. So from when the new year starts in March until June 1st, that window, it's about a $56 million dead cap hit. And then they would actually lose about $8.5 million in cap space. Now, one of the tough parts about over the cap is option bonuses aren't necessarily perfectly aligned with the cap numbers. So that could actually change. The Vikings would absorb a $25.25 million base salary and that $10 million option bonus. And yeah, it would be a lot of dead money for the Bengals, which they would have to be okay taking. And if they do, well, is Jamar Chase going to want to stay? He's probably going to want out too. So there are a lot of different variables, but from a fit perspective, it's great. Burrow could run the offense. He could operate things. He knows how to navigate murky pockets. He likes to throw a little bit of quicker stuff. So Zach Taylor runs a much different version of the Sean McVay offense than O'Connell does, than McVay does, than Matt LaFleur does, because they have Joe Burrow. Burrow likes to be out of the shotgun. He likes things to be static. He likes to make quick reads, and he likes to be able to run a different variation of the offense. Think of what they did with Joe Brady in LSU. That's what they like to do. Well, are you going to be able to do that with Kevin O'Connell? Is that what Kevin O'Connell is going to be willing to do for Joe Burrow? Are you going to be willing to make those kind of adaptations? Plus, there's a chance that they have to trade like 2 first-round picks and JJ McCarthy, and then maybe more to go get Burrow. Know what happens if he tears his ACL again? To me, that's the number one trepidation. And I know that's not a fun way to think of things, but when you're making a big swing like this, everything matters. Every detail.
LA went for it. They won.
Mm-hmm. They did. And if you win, you're a legend. Joe Burrow would have a statue outside US Bank Stadium. He would. Straight up. But it's not always that simple. So I want to see what ends up elevating. I want to see what ends up happening with Joe Burrow. Is he actually going to want out? Now, I don't think this would end up happening, but let's talk about a trade post June 1st. The Bengals would only take a dead cap hit of $22.75 million. And then they would be on the hook after that for $45 million next year. Not so great. Not so great. I wouldn't want to deal with that. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So trading quarterbacks makes a lot of sense in your mind because, like, oh, I can go get this guy. We can, like, they're done. They're not going to really win anything, and we can make a huge trade and we can improve the team. That's great. Financially, it makes it really hard because these contracts, they do option bonuses. Mm-hmm. And what option bonuses are, it's a signing bonus that you can pay out at any time. So he's already been paid a $55 million option bonus in 2024. And this year, he was paid an option bonus of $65 million. Sorry, it's $55 million in 24, and then another $10 million this year. Another $10 million next year. Another $10 million in 2027. And another $1 million in 2028. And then he has a basic ass roster bonus in the final year of $2.5 million. the way these contracts are structured makes it really hard to trade because the option bonuses, they're still dealing with $13 million in 26 dead, 27, 28, and then another $2 million in 29, and that all compounds. So I'd love it, but I wouldn't count on it because it would be historic for an organization to take on that kind of dead money. And that is not something the Cincinnati Bengals are normally willing to do, eat dead money. They're cheap. They're incredibly cheap.
Yeah, but like you said, they're not willing to. It would cost a whole lot to trade for them.
Mm-hmm.
2 firsts, probably 2 players. Will Raggart's recommended J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner, plus a second and a third, blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to set up for
and a second and third. Is that on top of 2 firsts?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's too much.
He's probably going to garner, if he gets traded, the biggest trade next to Herschel Walker, biggest trade for a quarterback ever.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is like a top 4 quarterback in this league, but giving up 2 firsts, a second, a third, McCarthy's a given because you're giving up on McCarthy if you're trading for Burrow. But then also Dallas Turner, who's an ascending edge rusher. I'm sorry, I'm not giving up 4 premium picks and a potential Pro Bowl edge rusher to go get Joe Burrow. That's a bridge too far. And if you want to, let's do this live and then we'll end the show because I don't like Spotrac for when it comes to
Jimbo revises. Plus, the specter of the Herschel Walker trade hangs over any mega deal.
Mm-hmm.
But does Kwesi figure this is the only way to keep his job?
Well, if he's in that kind of bad spot, why would the Wilfs let him make that trade?
I don't know. Because they want a winner. They want to go to the Super Bowl.
That's the question you have to ask yourself. If he's on the hot seat, why are you going to let him mortgage your franchise like that? That's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a really tough one. Let's look at some quarterback trades historically. I went back to 2010. Trades with so Carson Palmer in October of 2011, first and second round picks. 2012 first and a 2013 second, so they were split up between drafts.
Yeah, March Palmer wasn't.
I'm just going. I know, but I'm just going by. We have to at least set a baseline for what some of these trades go for, and then we can build on that. Alex Smith in 2013, right after Colin Kaepernick's emergence, back-to-back second-round picks ended up being picked 34 and 56. As we continue to go, funny enough, Carson Palmer then got traded 2 years later to the Cardinals, along with a 7th round pick for 6th and 7th round picks. Did not go very well for the Raiders there. Sam Bradford and a 5th round pick went to the Eagles for Nick Foles in 2nd and 4th round picks. And then obviously it's really hard to count the Sam Bradford trade here because this was a panic move. A 1st round pick and a 4th round pick the following year, because if the Vikings don't make that move unless they're desperate, and the Eagles probably don't make that trade unless a desperate team is calling them, because they didn't want to start Carson Wentz right away. They wanted to give him like a gap year. And Bradford, he was on that 2-year deal. You had the opportunity to do that if you wanted to. Garoppolo went for a 2nd at the trade deadline of 2017. This is a funny one. I'm just going to read it because it's funny. 4th and 5th round pick swaps for the Packers to acquire Deshaun Kaiser, and they traded cornerback Demarius Randall. Just a very funny one.
But you still haven't got to a quarterback that's worth this.
Well, you have to set just a baseline of what quality starting quarterbacks are going for, and then you can use that to build upon what a Joe Burrow trade will look like. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
Russell to Denver. Look at
Dave. I'm getting there. Let me get there. So January of 21, the Stafford trade, 2 firsts and a third and Jared Goff. That's probably your best comp. Now, the tough part is with Goff came, it was, they say they wanted Goff, and I believe that they wanted Goff. But Goff was viewed as a negative asset at this point. And I believe reporting came out at the time that they had to throw in another first-round pick in order to get rid of the Goff contract. So you have to at least include that in your discussion. Carson Wentz went for a first and third round pick to the Colts. They were desperate too. So that one's a little hard to kind of include there. Darnold went for second, fourth, and sixth round picks when he was still semi-unknown. People thought maybe he just had the Jets stink on him. Then you have the Russell Wilson deal where this is one of the crazier trades I've ever seen. This might be the worst trade in NFL history, other than Deshaun Watson. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a fifth, a backup quarterback in Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and starting defensive tackle Shelby Harris for Russell Wilson in a fourth. Then you had the Deshaun Watson trade, 3 firsts, a third, and 2 fourths for Watson in a sixth.
And a whole bunch of headache.
Aaron Rodgers went for a first, 2 seconds, and a sixth. If Rodgers would have played 65% of snaps, that would have, one of those seconds would have become a first, but it did not happen.
Yeah,
so
he popped his Achilles first play of the game.
Yeah, there really is no great comp. And I think the one comp that you have is the Matthew Stafford trade. So I think
Russell
2 firsts and JJ McCarthy probably makes the most sense. The one tough part about the Russell Wilson trade and why it's hard for me to say, hey, somebody's going to get 2 firsts and 2 seconds. You have to have teams fighting for him. Our team's going to be willing to fight for Joe Burrow, who's injury prone. There are multiple teams gunning for Russell Wilson. And I think that is going to be a big factor in this too. Like, how does this end up working? I think 2 firsts, a second, a third, Turner and McCarthy is an insane price. I would never pay that. I'm sorry. If McCarthy becomes an average quarterback and you have everything else around him, just figure it out. But yeah, not a ton of great comps out there for the true superstar, especially because when you look at the superstars, Matt Stafford was a question mark because it's like, well, how good is he? Because he could never get it done in Detroit. So there was that stigma around him. Burrow in his second year made the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson's trade was one of the biggest disasters in NFL history. The Deshaun Watson
Russell
trade.
Wilson won a Super Bowl.
He did, but I'm talking post trade. Like right. That ended up being a mitigated disaster, and that's how NFL teams are going to think about this.
Right.
The Deshaun Watson trade, mitigated disaster. And it's fascinating because if you just talk about the football stuff, obviously with Watson, you have to talk about all the sexual assault allegations. There's 25 of them. But the football stuff, nobody could have predicted that he would be that bad. He looked like a top 10 quarterback on the field. And that's the risk. If the guy completely craters, you're screwed. And the Browns did it to themselves. But I'll probably write about it tomorrow because I think it's an interesting conversation. It's a tough one to navigate. It really is. But that is our show. Don't forget 2 bloggers Saturday morning, 10:05 Central Time, before the Army-Navy game. Dave, you're Air Force. Who do you cheer for in Army-Navy?
Army. Air Force was birthed from the Army. It used to be the Army Air Corps.
Okay. For some reason, I thought the Navy and Air Force were more intertwined because obviously Air Force, often they fly off of Navy ships all the time.
Air Force doesn't fly off Navy ships.
They don't?
Rarely. Oh, no. Only ones were U-2s.
We're learning new things today. But then we'll also be back on Sunday.
Well, we do have tailhooks, but besides the point.
We'll be back Sunday with post-game show.
Late Sunday night as your Minnesota Vikings defeat the Dallas Cowboys.
Thanks, I hate it. From Dave, I'm
hey,
Tyler.
I think we're eliminated if the Bears win.
Yes. Bears
so we
have
may
to lose
go
out.
into the game eliminated already.
And you know what?
Then play spoiler. Play spoiler anyways.
At least we'll know at that point. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.